know, so the biggest problem with M+, in my opinion, is like literally not being able to play. And I think that hurts the game so much. Like the amount of people that would want to play but cannot play, how is that not the #1 priority? Like, I don't understand this. Hey guys, so there's been a lot of discussion lately about Soloqueue, if Blizzard should introduce Soloqueue to Mythic Plus in WoW. Someone in my chat brought it up as I was streaming, so I figured I'm gonna give my general thoughts about it as someone who has been playing WoW since it came out, and I've been playing M+ ever since it was introduced to WoW as well. And on another note, 70% of the people that are watching my videos are not subscribed to my channel, so if you guys enjoy my content, it would mean a lot to me if you could leave a sub. Thank you so much. Have you seen that people have been asking for Soloqueue in M+, and then other people were saying that they don't want Soloqueue because it's like less social if you just queue up? What do you think about that? Do you think Soloqueue is actually bad for like the social aspect of the game? Or do you think it doesn't matter? Like if you do LFG, the LFG tool, does have a social aspect to it because you can go voice chat and you can like talk to the people beforehand and blah blah blah. But I think if you're not a person that wants to be social, then you're not gonna get any like social aspect out of the current system, right? Like I puck keys all day and I almost never add anyone. And I do high keys and I meet the same people a lot. Like we even go voice chat a lot as well. And I rarely ever even, you know, like, I don't know. Like, how social is LFG tool? Queues will be terribly long. Yeah, people are saying that the queues will be long. But if that is the case, then you just find your own group again, no? Like, it's not gonna be the same as Solo Shuffle. Like, people have been saying, oh, it's gonna be like Solo Shuffle and Solo Shuffle is bad and blah, blah, blah. But it's not true because they can just do the same thing as Flex Queue in League of Legends, where you either queue by yourself, or you queue with 5 players, or you queue with 3 players, you know what I mean? So if the queues are really long, then you just queue with 5, and then it's the same thing as it is now, right? Like then you just find a group and do the key, right? If you think that the queue is too long. So I'm not sure that's really a problem. In League, you can pick different champions to make a playable comp. I mean, what comp do you think wouldn't be playable, for example? I mean, I think a lot of people underestimate the viability of comps. I think there's a lot of comps you can just play. People say you need a Shadow Priest for Uldaman, but I don't think so. I'm thinking you need a Shadow Priest for Uldaman. 3 casters and no kick healer is pretty bad. Yeah, but they can just... Like, what Blizzard can do with a Soloqueue system is that they can add certain variables to it. Like a priority list. The queue can be smart. It could basically say, all right, if there's 500 people queuing for plus 20 keys, then the system is going to try to logically put them together. If there's a lot less people queuing, then they'll just put them in a group. However, if there's a lot of people queuing, technically it's possible that they make sure that every group has at least 1 melee player and at least 1 hybrid dispel if it's afflicted and blah blah blah, right? Now if there's a lot less people queuing, then they can remove these kind of smart rules to make sure that people actually get invited. Because of course the downside of having a smart queue is the fact that you would have to wait really long. Let's say the queue system says you need a curse dispel for Naltharis for whatever reason. Then it would take really long to actually form groups for it. But if the queue system is smart and it says, hey, we're gonna try to actually form smart groups, if there's a lot of people that are queuing simultaneously, and if there's not that many people queuing, then we're just gonna put people together and good luck. Because I do think having a quote-unquote bad comp is still playable. I think there's a lot of comps that can just be played, you know? I think people 100% overestimate the importance of a good comp. The reason why people play with good comps is because they can, because of the system we have right now. If I want to play my own key, I'm going to make sure I have a good comp, right? Because I want to time the key. So I don't want to risk it. And therefore, I'm going to try to go with the best comp in my mind, right? That doesn't mean you cannot do the key with another comp or with like a worse comp, right? I think it's a grass is always green on the other side type situation. I mean, so the biggest problem with M+, in my opinion, is like literally not being able to play. And I think that hurts the game so much. Like the amount of people that would want to play, but cannot play. How is that not the #1 priority? Like, I don't understand this. How is it not the #1 priority for Blizzard to let people actually play the game? Because I think it's such a big deal. Like, imagine you want to play League of Legends, but you have to find 4 people to play with in a fucking like Discord channel or something before you can play the game. Like, I understand that this is different than League of Legends, but still, like, the fact that you cannot play the game even though you actually want to play is such a big like downside for M+. Like, it demotivates people so much that they just don't want to do it at all. Because there's no money in optimizing stuff like that. See, I disagree. I think if it was easier for people to play M+, people would play the game more. Which means there's money for them, right? I mean, the more people play, the more money Blizzard makes, so... And I think if it was somehow easier to get into M+ groups and to play keys, then it would generally increase the amount of people that actually play the game, right? I mean, I understand that comp is part of M+, and I don't think the Soloqueue system has to be the only system. I think that Soloqueue can just be something that you do if you don't find a group, so you just queue up solo, and it's like you just play the game. You might get a really shitty comp, you might get a key you don't need, you might get whatever, right? Like, I don't think you have to stop players from doing keys like this. If you want to do 26 keys, you're probably not going to do you're not going to do solo queue, right? If you want to do 26 keys, you're probably going to find a group with a good comp, with good players, and you're going to go voice chat, and you're going to do the key and try to time it, right? I think the solo queue system is supposed to be more of a system so people can just do something instead of waiting in like a tool. Like, I'm not saying that they should remove the normal system. I think you should still be able to enter a dungeon and do a key just normally as you do now. Soloqueue should just be something on top of that, I think. If you have both, people will always go for the one where they can pick. There's no way. I don't think so, Garonax. I absolutely disagree. If there was a Soloqueue system and this normal system, there's absolutely no way that people would not do Soloqueue. I think there would be a lot of people that would just queue solo. Because it would be so much, it would just be less hassle. You just get invited, you just go ahead and do it. Like, especially if you want to do a weekly 20. Like, let's say you want to do a weekly +20 key. Do you really think people would rather use the LG system than just queue up solo queue? I think people would for sure just queue up solo. I will quit this game if it ever get implemented. I swear to you, one of the biggest problems with the WoW community is that they're not open to anything. WoW players will literally be like, if they ever do this, I'll quit the game. I remember when we talked about cross faction. I was like, so what do you guys think about cross faction? Do you think they should remove the restrictions between factions? Like, do you think it's a little bit outdated? Blah, blah, blah. And then somebody was like, if they will ever do cross faction, I'll quit the game immediately. And I'm just like, why? And he's like, because Alliance versus Horde is the major thing about World of Warcraft. And I'm like, is it? Like, is it? I wonder if that player still plays the game. Or if they actually quit the game. I'm kind of interested in that. Like, I don't necessarily think that solo queue would solve everything. And I'm sure there's, like, a lot of... Like, it would change the way in classes a lot, I'm sure. And it might not all be positive changes, obviously. But it's like hard to tell. It's like this whole LFG thing though. Like, if anyone tells me that this is like a social aspect, then I don't know. Like, how is this social anymore? This has to do with the community just not being social anymore. Like, with the way the internet works and the way video games work nowadays, people just don't want to be social. Like, even if you try to force them, they're just not going to. And I feel like if people are completely unwilling to be social, then they just won't do it. No matter how much you try to force them, I don't know. Because there's no fucking way. If you wanna play in Plus, but you don't want to be social, then you'll just do that. Like, you just queue up for a group, you play the key, then you leave afterwards, and you forget the players that you played with. Like, you will not remember any of their names, you will not remember who they are, what they do, nothing. Why? I mean, why would you remember, right? And the opposite is also true. Like, if you want to be social, if you're a person that really wants to make friends in M+, then you can, I feel like then you can do that either way. Because there are people that go out of their way to, like, add players after keys. Like, sometimes I play a key and people will just add me afterwards and they'll, like, message me. It's like, oh, we can play again maybe someday. And it's like, yeah. And I feel like they could do the same thing no matter what, right? Like, I feel like even if this so-called solo queue would exist, people could still do the same thing, where after the key, they can say, oh my god, like, let's add each other, like, maybe we can queue together someday, or, you know? I don't know, I feel like just because solo queue exists doesn't mean necessarily that people are gonna be, like, a lot less social, necessarily, you know? I don't know. I kind of want to compare it to flex queue in League of Legends, because League has flex queue and solo queue, right? And there's some people who only queue solo, and then there's people who only do flex queue. Like, they'll only ever queue with friends. And I think that's fine, right? Like, the fact that there's something that people can do by themselves, but they can also queue together if they want, I think that's fine. I think the problem in WoW, though, is that there's just not enough players. I don't think there would be enough players for a solo queue system and a flex queue system as a whole. I think there's not enough people. But generally speaking, I think having, like, a flex queue system and a solo queue system would just, like, by default be better than what we have now. Yeah, I don't think there would be enough people for, like, a solo queue and a flex queue system at all. Especially, like, because you would need a ranking system where people with higher ranking get queued together, right? Like, that's the biggest problem with, like, a solo queue system, I guess, in general, is that you would need, like, MMR. And, yeah, I just think there's not enough people. It's not like League of Legends, where there's hundreds of thousands of players queuing every minute or whatever. I definitely think you can make a ranking system for solo queue. But then the problem would have to be that you would have to make, as I said, like, a solo queue and a flex queue separately from each other. Because the problem is, obviously, queuing with other people would infinitely be better than queuing by yourself for your own rating, right? So they would have to make it separate from each other, which, again, there's not enough people for that. But technically, a solo queue system would work fine. Because if everyone is by themselves, then I think the rating would be accurate, right? Technically. Because then every player that queues solo is queuing solo. And then if you time more keys by yourself, then you should have a higher rating, right? Of course, other people can deplete the key for you. But you can definitely be somebody who carries a key well, right? Like, you can learn how to call things better, or how to, like, maybe always convince people to join voice chat at the start of the key, and then you call interrupts and you call this and that and whatever. Like, you can definitely learn how to carry a group by yourself. Well, not carry, but, like, increase your odds of timing a key as a single player, I guess.